All right, Oscar, you got me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to plug in my other mic. So I think it does better. So I'll have to switch that over.
All right, guys, we are live streaming here. You guys want to shut off your cameras?
Yeah, I'm going to rename mine real quick. Cool. All right.
What's going on social media? We're about to go live here. Give us a few minutes. Randy, you want to shut your camera?
Yeah, what's the background? Background good?
Yep, background's good. Got the Chevelle, got everything there. Love it.
See ya.
All right.
go. Hey, man. What is up?
How's it going? Good morning.
It's going good, man. Happy Wednesday to you.
Happy Wednesday to you too.
Pretty excited about today's podcast. So glad to be having this back. We were gone for, like I said, almost a year, and I don't know. I get a lot out of this thing. We always hear a message back from people, and as long as we keep hearing those messages, we're going to keep doing it. But hey, I got some guys I want to introduce you to. We got our 5-day. Last week was our Spanish 5-day. So guys, come on in. Come on up here. You got people from all over the place. So they're going to introduce themselves real quick. I'll get out of the way. So there you go. Go ahead and say your name. And
hey, what's up, guys? My name's Hayden. I'm out of Coos Bay, Oregon. I own SCC Detailing, one of the interns here, mentoring these 4 fine young men.
there you go. Come on up.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Alfred. I'm from Houston, Texas.
Yeah, we call him Smiles because he's always smiling.
He's
always got a good
hear
smile.
this weather out here.
Ryan from Tulsa. Hey, look at this. Did you see this? Every crayon on the whole shop is gone. That's it. They're gone.
I am Justice. I'm out of Coos Bay, Oregon.
Yep. He's got a real pretty mouth.
Chris from Temecula, California.
Yep. There you go. All right. All right. Here we go, man. Here we go. You ready for this?
Let's do it.
Right on. Hey, so it's wow, this one and next week's pretty cool. So, this one superpower has been missed by a lot of entrepreneurs. If you're running a business, is you can't afford to be average, and you can't afford to be operating below your maximum potential for very long. And I talk to people all the time. They're like, I'm only 5 years in. I'm like, 5 years in is like 15, 20, or 25% of your career. And so you can't waste 5 years like not being everything. And self-awareness is so important to your growth and your happiness and where you're at and where you're going. And you got to take and have that self-awareness. And this is going to segue into a couple other podcasts that is going to go right off this topic. But before we jump in, this week, and in our guests are already in today. We got all the prep work done. We already had the 1 step done. We're going to the sanding today. All the compounding would be done. Then we jump into interiors tomorrow. We finish up with a lot of extras, add-ons, money. This training is all about things that you can take back. So many people waste their time on stuff they're never going to make money at. And we really concentrate on stuff that you're going to make money at here. I don't even care about the other stuff. We're going to teach you how to go make money. And so we've got Monterey with Team Double Black coming up here in a couple of weeks. We've got an outdoor leadership course that's going to be going on in September. We've got our extreme film. We're going to call it a film week, where it's PPF, window tint, and then a day of business and sales training. That's off the charts. We just opened that up recently. Got a lot going on. And so Oscar is up here. I wish I could show you guys the whole shop, but him and Carlos and Becky, I mean, you guys kind of explain what you guys did last week to the shop and why.
We kind of cleaned up a little bit. We organized. They figured out that in my past life I was an interior designer.
Yeah.
That's what he kept telling me. No, I think we just made it more efficient for what we do have coming up, for the PPF training, for the leadership course, and for the detail training. I think it's going to be real efficient the way that we organized everything, and looking forward to the next few weeks of getting up there and moving everything around again.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. It definitely. We got a lot more to go. We ordered new cabinets in. The cabinets are all in. They look great. We've got 2 more sets that we're gonna order in over time, get them in, and then reorganize all of our storage areas and everything else. So a lot of work went into it. So Becky jumped in. We worked our butts off. So it's pretty cool. And so we're excited about what's going on. So a lot of today is just based off my own experience with self-awareness and how it's changed everything over my life and my career and what it's meant. And so I think this is an important topic a lot of people just don't think about. And, first off, what is self-awareness? It's knowing what you're feeling. This is something, especially when you're younger. I think it's a challenge for a lot of humans, always has been for me, is why am I feeling this emotion? And then controlling your emotions, is knowing, when it's okay to like let your emotions go And then when it's not, who to show your emotions to? That's a big one, because a lot of people, if you show emotion, they're going to take that as a weakness. And it's not. It can be a strength. You can be hunked up and have way too much emotions going on, or not enough. I was one of the gentlemen here today. I told him that a lot of people in the industry used to say that I just didn't smile enough. And, I noticed he's kind of the same way. And I said, at all cost, add a smile to your life, man. A smile is not a fake smile. When you can really smile, and I know where he's coming from because I was there, and it's not unhappiness. You're just serious about life. A lot of stuff's going on, and your experiences and everything else. But you got to get past that as soon as you can. That's, Alfred, we're calling you smiles because I told you already. Don't lose that smile, man. Keep it going. But what you're feeling and why. Recognizing your habits, your triggers. What's setting you off? What puts you into a downer? And how can you stay away from that? What's your blind spots? What are things that you just don't see? I've always said in mine, I've got a really good bookkeeper and a really good CPA because I'm not good at that shit. It stresses me out. I'm good at money, but I don't like dealing with that. I don't like that side of the business. So I've got good people. And when you outsource it, it's not that expensive. It really isn't. And the value, we're bringing Courtney, my bookkeeper, in on a Mafia webinar next Monday. And she's going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff that her and I do. We meet every Friday, sometimes not every, but there's like this week, we'll meet twice, sometimes 3 times. So we average a meeting every single week. And then about every other month, I sit down with our CPA and really go through things. So, those are good habits. It triggers other events to happen. And then it's a blind spot for me that I don't like. And then understanding how your behavior aligns, or misaligns with your values. Sometimes we get so cranked up, and I hate the word busy, but we fill our days with stuff that we really need to fill our days with. And I think being aware of those things is going to help you kind of value your time a little more. And then the time with people around you and what that means to them. You're important to people. And, if you're not aware of that, you need to be aware of that. Is people in your life needs you, and they need you present, and they need you active, and they need you to be you. And so you've got to realize those things and step back and correct yourself, because a lot of times, man, we're just busy, we're just busy. And, there's escapes. I mean, you look at, Becky's in the house. Hi, Becky. How are you? She's probably muted, but she's up in the front of the shop. There you go.
I'm good. Sorry. How
Nope,
are you
you're
guys?
good. But, Oscar, we would walk in the shop before Air Force One project, and this was her first year of having, that weight on her shoulders. And, she had so much honor. There's a couple times to where, Becky, you're pretty worked up, right? And I think, there's times where you just came in and told Oscar and I, hey, man, basically don't screw with me right now. I just need a little time. And I think that was her self-awareness. And Oscar and I and Diane got smart enough to leave her alone. We weren't gonna poke that bear,
That's
And
what got me to organize the shop, is to stay away from Becky for those few days.
Hey, you guys did such a good job. You did all the heavy lifting. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a lot. Carlos jumped in, and Carlos, thank you. And it's just there's so much of that, and I think being aware of that, and it's something that if I'm having a tough day, I'm usually pretty honest with Diane. I'll just say, hey, man, this is what's going on. It's nothing to do with you. It's just me, and what I'm kind of I went through this today. So, understanding that being able to step outside of yourself and reflect and look at things, that's really important. And a lot of people, I think I was a little better at it before things got, always people always say, oh man, it must be nice to be where you're at in business because it's got to be a lot easier. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you know how many calls? I mean, the other day I couldn't get anything done. And it's a good problem to have, right? But it gets frustrating because my phone was just blown up. I mean, I literally could not walk away from my phone. Becky coming up and said, you got to tell people just leave you alone for a bit. But that's the price you got to pay sometimes. Is you think that as your business, I look back to my first year, and the first year is so challenging. And when I want to go back to that, there's an innocence to that. I've said this before. there was an innocence to my first year, even though it was a real struggle, that I really dig looking back and reflecting on. And then that brings me a reality of, I asked for this. Is there's a cause and effect to everything. And as your business gets more successful, hopefully you get better at handling stresses and challenges. Becky's come into a new situation. Her prior career was completely different than this, but I bet if you ask her, there's times this is just as much stressful, even more stressful at time. Oscar, the same with you. There's times that you're going to have to realize that, hey, there's a price to pay. Is when you get in, we're a busy little company. We're a busy little organization. We've got a lot going on with 5-day trainings and 1-day training events all over the country, and my travel, globally, and putting on outdoor leadership courses, and putting on, nonprofit parties at SEMA with 600 people, as guests. There's a lot of moving parts, and there's not very many of us, moving those wheels, and it gets really, really challenging at times. So as you mature in your company, it's not that things are going to take and mellow out. They're going to get more confusing, and they're going to get more chaotic, and it's controlled chaos, and taming the chaos to bring it down to where it's controllable. And again, that's your self-awareness, is that you've got to be able to, can you delegate? Ask yourself that. Most people don't delegate very well. Can you just get out of the way when it's important and let other people take care of things? And there's times that you're not going to be able to. You're going to have to step in, and you're going to have to put in input delegation, decision-making delegation, teach people, guide them, give them your intent and your direction. And then once that's done, then you should be out of their way. Don't get in their way. Is let them go out there. So I see that when we look at awareness, self-awareness, there's a couple different types. There's that internal side of self-awareness, is that it's really how you clearly see yourself, your values, your kind of what you hold dear to your heart, your soul, your direction, your goals, your wants, your desires, and then your passions, your reactions, and your expectations. And that's huge. Your self expectations. But then there's the external side. And you can't take and put, if you're really driven, if you are, and if you've done pretty well in everything you've done, except for some hardships, we're all going to have those, and those are great learning opportunities. But if you're on the side of winning, and you've gone to the playoffs a lot in your life and your career, and you've won a couple Super Bowls, let me tell you, you can't put that same expectation on outward extended self-awareness on other people, because not everybody's going to operate at that level. And it doesn't mean that they're lazy or they're not as productive. They're different. That's it. And as much as, sometimes I think that's screwy when I look at somebody and they're not producing at my level. I'm the screwy one, not them. Is that I've got this incredible drive that has caused a lot of issues in my personal life and my professional life, because I'm a dog with the bone. I can't give that bone up. I'm going to chew it until the bone's gone. But that's not necessarily a good trait. It's great if you want to be successful, but you got to be able to turn that switch on and off when you're with your kids and with your spouse. And it took me some time to do that. And I still, even with, Oscar and Becky, with my wife, with my kids, with definitely myself, I'm harder on myself than I am anybody, but just people around me, people in the Guard, people in search and rescue, people that volunteer with me. I don't understand delays. I don't understand. I mean, I want to get in there and do it, but I want to do it, done's better than perfect. I've got some reality checks that I do. I've got a check off list that I do, but a lot of people don't operate underneath those guidelines. And you've got that external self-awareness, is realizing that, and you learning to cope with it, and then influencing others, and not trying to break others, because you will break people. Is that you'll break environments, you'll break cultures, you'll break relationships, you'll destroy everything if you don't take and practice self-awareness and start to learn how to take and not trigger out on people, and how to handle your blind spots, and how to take and share your habits with others other than forcing people to do others. So, Oscar, does that make sense to you? I mean, you come from a little bit different background with having a, long military career. In the military, when you bring in, a boot and they're going through, I mean, what if you acted that same way in business? And there's been times I've teased you through the years where I say, okay, guys, hey, this was the military. This was what Oscar just said in plain English.
Yeah,
You know,
it all hits home because again, I think everything you just mentioned now is why when I first started my business, I had a hard time working with people. I had a hard time delegating. I had a hard time letting go because it was just I was just so institutionalized into doing things a certain way that I mean, I even tell Carlos now, I was just, messing around with him yesterday here on Zoom, doing some practice stuff. And it's like, oh, the civilian world, it's like I still see it different because I was just brought up differently, and I was talking to someone yesterday during lunch. I had a Zoom call and I told him I was brought up differently. And then I landed in this industry. And I think that's what I can bring to this. But it's hard for me to adjust because I now realize no one's going to adjust to me. I have to adjust to everyone. And that's me. The self-awareness in myself, I had to learn that real quick and check myself. That when I left 7 years ago, I left. It was done. And it's very hard to transition. And we always get that 1 week of transitioning into the civilian world after, so many years. In the military, that's what they give you, and they expect you to just go back into civilization and adapt. So yeah,
well,
it totally say that.
Isn't that what an entrepreneur does too? Is that we've got all these self disciplines that a lot of people don't have. Oh,
Yeah.
on here, let me tell you, it's 10% of the entrepreneurs in the world are making 90% of the deals. All the rest are playing office. That's why the failure rate of business is so high. You know what? I mean, it's like 85, 90% by year 10. And I think it's because these people don't have this drive that you're speaking of right now. Now, Becky, let me talk about Becky for a second. We basically grew up together. This girl, a lot of people don't know this. She was top 10 national champion on a horse, man. Her Arab horse. I mean, it was unreal to see her enter a ring when I was a kid. The first time I went and saw her ride, and for her to go to the nationals, and I mean, she was one of the top 10 in the world in North America. She was driven, and when we met as kids, that was right in the midst of her riding competitions. And so this girl she's got that drive. My wife is crazy this way, and I think that's why we our met energy, so to say, says it. But Becky, you had life on the horse, right? And a very competitive, I mean, that a lot of people just don't realize in the horse industry how competitive it is. But then you go into business, you've been in business, since you're in your 20s, and then you transition to mom. How do you turn that off? Could you?
Yeah, it's hard. It really is hard. It's hard. You have to listen to what you're saying and not be so abrupt, that type of thing, where like at work, you're very structured, and at home, you have to kind of, bob and weave a little bit when you have littler kids. So yeah, it's a transition for sure.
Yeah, we took in, through the years, the self-discipline that it took to calm down, man. I wasn't very good at it, and I remember, Becky, you don't know this, but talking to your parents, is they would tell me that the struggles that you'd have of going from being a manager of managing a $1 million a year business to, hey guys, from going from, managing a $1 million a year business to, home all of a sudden, and turning it on and off. And it was kind of cool to listen, see as you matured as being a mom, and how you're able to successfully do that. And, I find myself, our youngest daughter's 21 years old, and I still feel when she comes in, when I'm like today, I'm in go mode, right? I still talk to her like she's a business associate. And I got to wake up some days and go like, hey man, that's your daughter, dude. Calm down. There's times where it's okay to be like that, but it's real hard to turn that off. And that trigger, again, that trigger is that now when I see her, what I try to tell myself is right when I lay eyes on her, God, look how pretty she is. When I say that to myself, when I lay eyes, that's a trigger for me to calm the hell down. She's your daughter, dude. She's not another fellow entrepreneur. She's not in the military. She's none of this stuff. You're not on a mission. You're not at an event. You're not her boss. You're her dad. You're her friend. And when I look at her, I've trained myself to say, gosh, look how pretty she is. That calms me down to treat her like I need to treat her. And so that's just been in recent years. Really when COVID happened and we had so much time at home together, that was really cool. I mean, it wasn't right what went down, but that really calmed me down towards my parenting. And it's a shame it didn't happen earlier, but man, I was in battle. I was right in the middle of building, what we've built. And, I mean, I am what I am too. And part of self-awareness is not allowing you to beat yourself up as a punching bag, and then not allowing other people to use you as a punching bag either. Is that you've made good moves and you've made mistakes. You've got to own those things and move on, but they need to move on too. And that's really important. I found out is, I've got so many, friends right now that all they are to their kids is a punching bag. They're just a punching bag, and their kids know it. And so the kids manipulate and then punch them and then make up and then manipulate and then punch them. And it's a reoccurring thing nonstop. And we've got good friends of ours that we don't see too often anymore, but it's constant drama with their kids. And I just don't get it. Right. So why is self-awareness so vital? Why is it so important in not just your life, but your business? Is, it improves your emotional intelligence, your emotional connections. Is that when you start becoming more aware of yourself, is now you can really be present among other people and start building a foundation of emotional intelligence with others. It's going to help you manage your emotions instead of just letting them control you and running rapid, going crazy, and kind of controlled chaos with emotional issues. Is those up and downs, if you allow them to get to you and you allow other people to get to you, is that you can't do that. Is that you've got to have this invisible wall up to where I've got the 80% rule. When somebody's eating up 80% of my emotional ability, is that I got to turn them off for a little while. And it's not ignore them, not cut them out of my life. Is I just take a short little break. And I'm talking days, maybe even hours. But I got to take a little break, and I've got to kind of recharge my emotional batteries. And I want to have my emotions available for other people, my wife, my kids, my friends, my cohorts, the people that I coach and mentor. And for my coaches and my mentors, is I want that emotional awareness available to them. The next thing about awareness, deep self-awareness, is it drives better decisions. When you're in control of your emotions and when you're calm and collected, is all the patterns and motivations and everything else about your decision making, the impulsiveness and the reactability to it is, are you reactive or proactive? Is that so many people are reactive to situations instead of proactive. Is I think learning how to take and scope, they got a saying when we went on mission, it was like the first thing to fail was our plan. And so for me to have to adjust to change has been pretty effective. But I found out that I like my change. And so in business, I've had to learn to be, as our team grew, and we got, again, a real small team, is I've got to be very, very conscious that they've got their ideas too. And I've got to let them pass through and share their ideas with me. And that I can't just go with mine, because some of mine might be real stupid. Usually not. They're pretty good. But when I allow other people to come in and I don't have any messy situations in decision making, usually what they'll do is the plans they come forth with or the plans I come forth with, and we team build it. Wow, it's powerful. And we operate with clarity and not confusion at that point. is that we're making sound decisions versus these emotional, non-intelligent decisions that are kind of a mess. Also, when you're self-aware, it enhances personal growth. I'm going to add a little bit to this. The one thing I left out of that in my notes was it is going to absolutely skyrocket your business growth. Is when you take and you've got a lot of self-awareness about your business and a lot of self-awareness about yourself, is that what's going to happen with your growth is it's going to go nuts. Your creativity, good luck ever shutting that down, because you're not going to shut that creativity down. And that's a good thing. I never, ever want to take and shut my creativity down. I probably come up with 10, 12, 15, 20 ideas a day to further business or other ways to bring income in for a company and or to help other people. These guys in the group, almost 200 of us, take and enhance their businesses. And, we just came up with some ideas, with a group of ours a few weeks ago. And I said, man, if I was you guys, this is what I do. And I really think strongly, and I think they're thinking about it. Will they do it? Probably not, but it was a really good idea. And it did stir a lot of conversation on other opportunities. So when you're self-aware, your personal growth and your company's growth and your income growth is going to blow up. One of the final things is it's going to build authentic leadership. I've said this before, and some people laugh at this, but I think to be a really good leader, you have to know how to follow. So many people want to jump into a leadership position. They have no idea how to follow. They can't take direction. They don't know what their boss or their leader's intent is. And sometimes they don't even care what that leader's intent is. How can you be a good leader if you got a shitty outlook on following? And so the best people I've ever seen in leadership positions will lead, and then at a certain spot, they're following. They're following the people that know what they're doing. They're following their subject matter experts. They're following their staff that's carrying the load. They'll jump back in and they're there for support. I think that's when you're authentic and you're self-aware and you're not trying to prove anything, and you can just lead with pure goodness. Holy crud, man. Is that going to allow you to go places? Is self-awareness brings out your weaknesses and it shows in light to yourself. And some of them you're not going to like. You're not going to like seeing some of these weaknesses. You're not going to like seeing it at all. But if you face them quietly and on your own, you don't sit there. It's not confession at Catholic Church. Matter of fact, a lot of times I'm very careful of who I share this stuff with, and why I share it and how much I share, because people will use that against you. But even the things that I share with my wife, and I share 99.999% of everything with her. And the only reason I don't share that little bit more is it's in the process of developing to where I feel comfortable enough to tell her those things. Is I want to bring it out in a way that it makes sense. Is one of the examples of this is I really wanted to write down the rest of my life goals, really what my bucket list was. And when I sealed up the envelope, I didn't give it to her for weeks because it only had one sentence on there. And I was like, man, is she going to think like, am I nuts? I was kind of nervous to give it to her. So finally I worked up and I said, listen, I put down what my priorities are and the rest of my life. And I wrote it down on a piece of paper, it's sealed in an envelope. And I love to take and have you do the same. And I handed her a piece of folded paper like this. And I said, would you take this piece of paper and write down kind of your bucket list items? You don't have to do it now, but just write them down and put them in the envelope and hand me. She goes, yeah, give me a piece of paper. So she starts writing. And I said, hey, take your time thinking about this. And she goes, no, it's done. And I said, well, open my envelope. And she opened it up and I turned her piece of paper over. Almost word for word, the exact same one sentence. And I'll leave that. I won't say what it was. It was really cool, but I was nervous because I thought, is my wife going to think this is too simple? And it was the most complex. It showed that both of us have arrived at such a great spot in life. And I'm so proud of my wife because she didn't overanalyze it like I did. She used her heart and her soul to show me something and it was pretty amazing. So final thoughts. You know, a lot of people will think that self-awareness. I'm going to have Becky and Oscar jump in here. If there's any questions or comments, we'd love to hear them too. But, you know, same with you guys. You know, self-awareness just isn't a personal development issue. It's not. It's a survival skill in business and leadership. It really is. It's without it, you're flying completely blind. You're only getting part of what this amazing world and relationship has to offer. And really it's going to give you more control, clarity, and confidence in everything that you're going to do. And it's going to, in the long run, make you a lot happier person, you know, is when you're self-aware. And I think that's a lot of people are missing that. And a lot of business owners are almost like this is kind of what they don't want to do is, you know, I think a lot of people are kind of fearful of admitting, you know, their self-awareness because maybe at first you've got a lot of things to fix. And that's okay because, you know, again, I got a saying, done's better than perfect. You got to start somewhere. And I think that, you know, I had a tough upbringing and not a really good situation, and not all through life have I made that any better. There's times I've actually enhanced some of that. Some of it was my feeling of not deserving to be where I was, and so I sabotaged it. And I think that when you're self-aware and you dive into your mind daily, this is an exercise I do every day. Like this morning, I woke up super early. Diane was still asleep. Dogs are all asleep. Horses weren't stirring around yet. House was quiet. And I just got into my mind. I didn't even think about the podcast this morning. I just dove into my mind and thought about the things I'm thinking about. What is occupying my mind? What are things that are there? And honestly, it was a cool position this morning. I don't have anything negative in my mind right now. Nothing negative. It was all really cool, positive things. But I had to take and put a couple things on hold that I've been thinking about that don't pertain to my life right now. And they really shouldn't be in my life because I've got other things, other people, other emotions, and other goals to think about. And at that moment, I was able to table a few things that have been occupying my time a little bit that just don't need to be there. They'll come back. And I didn't turn my phone on. I didn't go to social media. I didn't go in the bathroom. I just lay there quietly. And I sat there and had two dogs by me, and I petted my dogs. And my wife was sitting there and she was sound asleep. I didn't want to wake her up. And it was a quiet time. And it was a really deep thought quiet time. And I need more of those. We all do. And so next week, this is a buddy of mine, Nathan, that was here last week. He said something to me, and he's a younger guy than me. He's about 15 years younger than I am. And he said, you know, he goes, my main goal in life right now is being noble. Man, I started digging into studying and digging deep into being noble and what it means. And, you know, I'm a historic person. I love to read back through history and some of the great people in history. I'm really excited next Wednesday to bring this to you and what it means to be noble in your business, within your business relationships, and then noble at home with your family, with your spouse, with your significant other, with your kids, and then what it means to be noble to your colleagues. And so we're going to jump into that next week. So I'm really excited about that. So stay tuned. And then the week after that, we're up in Monterey, and we're really excited about Car Week. So, hey, Becky, Oscar, anything to finish out with this?
Yeah, just kind of on the final thoughts, taking it back to that. And it's just across, you know, coming in from the military side, and even in the military, this applies. And, you know, just a message out to the detailing industry. A title and a position doesn't make you a leader. You yourself make yourself a leader. And I see that way too many often when people take these titles and they believe that they're in a leadership position and they don't know how to hone themselves. And again, it comes from that self-awareness. And I deal with that a lot.
Yeah.
I've had to check myself at the door plenty of times from being on Air Force One projects, from, you know, going to Warbird Eagles and having to, you know, handle different personnel when we're on these projects. I check myself that, you know, I got to remind myself, these ain't military. You can't treat people certain ways. And I see this a lot in this industry is people get positions and they abuse it because they don't have that self-awareness of what in my case, the troops, as I like to call them, or their personnel, their employees underneath them and how they feel. They don't take the time to talk to people and really see and build a culture. So to all the leaders out there in this industry, get out there and talk to your people, see how they feel and see what they're feeling and see if they like where they're at in the positions that they're in. You can learn a lot from the people that work for you. And just like you can learn a lot from the people that you work for. But again, what Rennie was saying, the self-awareness is where it starts. And I've had to check myself a lot of times when I walk through that door. And even when I walk into Big Bear, I check myself where it's like, I got to realize where I'm at. I got to realize the position that I have. And, you know, like we always say, someone always salutes someone, right, Chief?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So
Someone always
Becky, any
salutes
closing
someone.
thoughts?
I just want to piggyback off of Oscar, what he said. It's true that, I mean, I had a lot of time to self-reflect when I came back from Air Force One. I drove the U-Haul across the country, or well, not the country, but, across states. And I had a lot of time, and I chose not to turn on the radio, to be quiet for those couple days and self-reflect. And sometimes that's amazing, but he's absolutely right. Sometimes you have to just step back, because as a business owner, you have so much in your head, you have so much drive. It's almost like you're working off a checklist, and everybody in your wake is part of that checklist, and you're just kind of like barking out orders, like, you do this, you do that, you do this. But sometimes if we just rein it back and be aware of what's going on around us, sometimes the best things that happen are the people who are sitting on the sidelines, and they can see, because we're so focused, they can see, wait, maybe there is a better way, so we can be self-aware and what's aware around us and our people, and trust in our people that they know what's going on as well, and they care just as much as we do. Because sometimes I think as a business owner, you get stuck in like, nobody cares as much as I do, but you'd be really, really surprised with you bring your team in. So that's just what
That's
I have.
smart. Comes back to culture is basically what it's, you guys both said right there. And I'll end with this right now in this industry, probably more than I watched a couple different industries closely. We had businesses in other industries, and I call it island hopping. There's so much island hopping in this industry. Is what I mean by that is, I'm a detailer. No, I'm an influencer. No, I'm going to be a brand rep. No, I'm going to be a YouTuber. No, I'm going to be, and all of a sudden, you're a jack of all trades and a master of none. And, if you're a brand rep, go become how I moved ahead was not by, I skipped a few rungs sometimes. The times that I decided to skip from the bottom of the ladder to the top of the ladder is when the ladder fell and I fell on my head. Is you'll get good. And there are times, if you're really good at whatever you do, if you're a good, really, really good technician, really good detail, really good at PPF, really, really good at window film, really good at sales, really good at marketing, really good at you're setting up your advertising, it's going to be recognized and other opportunities are going to come up. But if you're looking for those opportunities, usually that's when they're not going to find you, is you want them to come to you, not you go to them. And I think that we can end it on that, and stay focused on what you are, folks. Have some fun, smile a lot. And we'll see you next week, guys. So, hey, happy detailing. Thanks for staying in. As always, if this podcast helped you, we love to hear from you. Let us know what you think, and then share it with a friend, wouldn't you? And I'm out here. We'll see y'all later.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys.